listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Damn Podcast. I am your host, Angie Machado. Joined with me, as always, is Beaver Blitz beat writer extraordinaire in Corvallis, Jake Hedberg. Jake, huge week coming up. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. This week is really going to be the biggest for Oregon State athletics in quite some time. I'm really excited. Cannot wait for Saturday.
Number 5 Washington versus number 10 Oregon State, a top 10 matchup. We have a great show planned for you today. First, we're going to talk a little bit about that Stanford beatdown, or Smackdown, I guess, as I called it earlier today. It was just total domination. So we're going to go over that. We're going to talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame that happened in Corvallis this past weekend. It was a great class. We're going to talk game day and the snub that occurred on Saturday night. We're going to do a little Pac-12 recap of all the wins and losses and what the game schedule looks like this week. And then, of course, we have to talk and preview Washington and the game that is coming to town. And after that, we're going to jump in and take some of your questions. So if you have questions and you are watching us live, please post those in the comments or comments throughout the show. We can pop some of those on if it makes sense. Otherwise, we do have some questions in the lodge and on Twitter that we will try to get to at the end of the show. We're going to have a special guest today, a player who had tutoring during this time. So he promised us next week he will be on. So next week, we look forward to having a special guest with us. But Jake and I have tons to talk about today.
Oh, yeah.
I think we should just jump right in. 62-17, never was close.
Nope.
Jake and I watched it in 2 different vantage points. Jake was on the sideline. I was up in the press box. Let's just jump right in, Jake. What did you think of that game?
I thought it was a dominant game. Really right after the Andrew Chatfield pick to start the game, you could kind of feel that Oregon State, they weren't looking ahead to Washington or Oregon. They were really just locked in, and they destroyed Stanford. Cannot remember last time Oregon State put up 60-plus points on a Pac-12 opponent, but they did, and really all levels played well. The starters, the backups, the third-string guys played in and played well. It was great to see some younger freshmen, guys like David Wells, Chisholm. They all got some time, and it was really just a dominant game.
It was crazy. So, take into consideration, there were 62 points scored. Damian Martinez had 4 rushing touchdowns. And guys like Damian and DJ and most of your starters were out of the game right after the first series in the third quarter. So just a little over 2 quarters of work, and they were able to put up such crazy numbers. Everything clicked. Stanford won the toss, elected to take the ball to start the game, and it was just domination from the get-go. We talked a week ago, and we've talked a little bit about during the season about Deshaun Fenwick and Damian Martinez maybe struggling a little bit. I know at the beginning of the Colorado game, Damian especially didn't look right. What changed this week? Because he was running, hitting holes. It was basically a tutorial on how to be a running back in college.
Yeah, the Damian Martinez that we saw on Saturday was reminiscent of what we saw last year. Just really running all over teams. He had a huge game. I don't think he had a carry in the second half at all. And for 136 yards and 4 touchdowns and a half, that's pretty solid. Deshaun Fenwick as well. I thought he ran the best he's ran all season outside the Washington State game. Those guys really they set the tone of the game offensively. Dame with 2 touchdowns on the first 2 drives. Overall, just a great day.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then you wouldn't see those kind of numbers that they put up without the holes that were being opened by the guys up front. That offensive line performance, probably the best we've seen all year from that group.
Yeah. Josh Gray had, I thought, his best game of the entire year. Tolly was fantastic as always. And then, I thought the second group did pretty well as well. Like the freshmen guys like, Dylan Lopez, Vincic, and that was promising to see because those guys are going to have to be big time contributors in the next year.
Yeah.
So to see them holding their own against Pac-12 opponents as freshmen is a very promising sign.
Yeah, how fun was it then? I mean, to see a lot more Aiden Childs, a lot more of that
Yeah.
second group of the offensive line, some of the younger wide receivers. How big was that, do you think, for just their development going into next year?
I think it really does go a long way. You can't really replicate live game reps, and I thought Aiden Childs played fantastic. This kid, he is unreal as a true freshman to be doing what he's been doing. He's on his third drive now. I believe he's 4 for 6, which as a true freshman quarterback going up against predominantly top 25 teams has been pretty solid. Really, I'm excited about the future. I feel like Oregon State's got the guys to keep this momentum going as long as the whole conference thing gets situated out.
Yeah, I'll bring that up too, because we're not going to talk a lot about that today just because the trial is tomorrow. So hopefully we'll have more to talk about. If there's something big happens, look for an emergency pod that we'll do, but otherwise we're just going to wait and bring that up next week. Just not a whole lot of new stuff to dive into right now. So no, I agree. I thought Aiden looked good. If you were to tell somebody who knew nothing about Oregon State that he was a true freshman, they wouldn't believe you.
I don't think they would either. And quite frankly, I think the nation is really going to introduce Aiden Childs this upcoming Saturday. You know, he may not be a bigger name nationally, but, you know, he's going to be out there on drive 3 again against a top 5 opponent with Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler calling the game. It's going to be a big-time opportunity for Childs to prove himself to the entire country. Yeah,
it's going to be big. So keeping on the offensive side of the ball, DJU had another great game, and I keep watching him make good decision after good decision. He knows when to throw the ball away. That play he made to Jermaine Terry, that was Jermaine Terry's first college touchdown. It was great in the post-game press conference hearing from him. DJ spread the ball out to 12 or 13 different receivers. Yeah, 13. 12. Okay, 12 different receivers. Crazy to have that kind of spread. We kind of talked about kind of the things that went well offensively. Did you see anything that you would like to see cleaned up before Washington this week offensively?
Quite frankly, no. I mean, this offense, they went out there and they played their best offense of the season, I thought at least. There was the one drive that was an issue was the Aiden Childs drive. You know, pressure got applied. I don't know whether that could kind of be credited to it being a different quarterback. You know, it's a different snap count, timing, everything's all changed up. That could have affected the performance of that drive. I believe he took a sack and then they got hit behind the line for a loss as well. But overall, besides that, I thought offensively was fantastic. I think DJ has been incredible. He's taken care of the ball. He's done a great job. He hasn't thrown a pick since Utah, which is over a month and a half ago now, knock on wood. But I really do think what DJ's done for this offense has completely transformed Oregon State from a solid 7-5, 8-4 bowl team to a team that's competing for a Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, you know, I right before we hopped on, I wanted just to kind of see where he was at, kind of in the national picture. So I pulled up PFF. He is right now just in overall quarterback rankings. He's ranked 25, I believe. He's right behind Caleb Williams. So I think his grade was an 89 for the season, which is
pretty good.
Really good. So I didn't dive in. Like I said, it was seriously right before I hit log on. So that'll be more of a deep dive that maybe Jake and I can do later, in between Civil War and bowl season. But anyway, I think the expectations were super high for him. And so I think Beaver fans maybe have had some questions. And obviously that's all in the lodge too, where people maybe pay a little more attention than just a casual fan. But I have been blown away. He's done everything Oregon State has asked of him. Like you said, taking care of the ball, distributed it, made good decisions. It's been, I think, a great addition to Oregon State. Okay, moving to defense. Huge game for the defense as well. It's not just an offensive. I mean, we saw Katana Ladapo with 2 interceptions, his first of the season. Chatfield.
Yeah, his second.
Andrew Chatfield had an interception, a forced fumble, and a sack. 2 sacks. It was another huge day for him.
Jermod got one as well.
Jermod, true freshman. He also saw a ton of minutes. Like you said, Isaiah Chisholm, some of the young Melvin Jordan, a lot of the younger guys were playing. Talk to me. I mean, missed tackles have been such an issue that we've brought up time and time again in this pod. I thought they looked better. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I thought the tackling was much better. I thought really all three levels of this defense played fantastic. The defensive line, they really did a good job limiting Stanford. They couldn't really run the ball at all, and the pass rush was fantastic.
Yeah.
Oregon State finished with 6 sacks. They have 36 now on the season, which is top 5 in the country. Before the season, I predicted them to get 35, and I thought that was kind of a stretch. And now it's game 10. It's on to game 11, and they've already eclipsed that. Linebackers, I thought Calvin Hart played the best game of his Oregon State career. He was in the backfield really all game long. And then those two younger guys, Isaiah Chisholm, Melvin Jordan, those guys look legit. Chisholm had a sack. Jordan was all over the backfield. I think Oregon State next year between those two and Mascarenas are going to have a solid trio. And then I thought the secondary was fantastic. They limited the big plays. Stanford got that one big touchdown pass, but at that point, it was mostly the 2s and 3s in the game. But
that 75-yard pass, which was a huge chunk of their passing offense, it came at midway through the third quarter, which Oregon State had already pulled a lot of their starters.
Yeah. I think the starting group did a great job, and I think Jaden Robinson has been very good this year. He continues to be one of the best cover guys in the Pac-12. He's been outstanding.
Yeah, Jaden Robinson has. I mean, we expected that. I think, in preseason, you and I were talking a lot about him. It was great to see Coop back, and it sounds from Coach Smith that he should be good for Saturday. Yeah. Noble Thomas, was he out too?
Yeah, he didn't play last week.
He didn't play. I didn't think so. Who I also want to just highlight, because we don't talk about him a lot, because we talk about Easton a lot, but Keely Arnold has just quietly put together quite great year.
Yeah.
What would you like to see the defense work on, this coming week?
This week is going to be tough with the secondary. Washington, they've got really the best offense Oregon State has played all year. Their receivers are fantastic between Jalen Poe, Omadunze, and Jalen McMillan's anticipated to play again, he hasn't played since week 3. And that'll be huge for Washington. But for Oregon State, I think it's going to come down to their corners and safeties really shining and doing more than the bare minimum to win this game.
Yeah. So injury update, Levengood. I expect we see him back this week. And Chatfield, I know we had some questions about Chatfield. He went out with a stinger, but he did come back in. He said he is fine. Any updates from Coach Smith today?
He said he was optimistic on Jake Levengood. Grant Stark got a little dinged up. Coach Smith didn't say too much about that, which makes me feel like he's more likely to play than not. But if Jake Levengood and Grant Stark both can't go, then things will get a little tricky. I'd imagine Flavio Gonzalez will probably slot in, or Luka Vincic potentially. And that would be whichever players, that would be their first career start and really their first live action. And that could be a potential issue.
Okay. So that's what we have for injuries. Noble, nothing new with Noble. So I'm sure it's, day to day, but I think it's huge having Ryan Cooper back.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that just the sun coming in there, Jake?
It's the light. Yeah, I might have to go close that. I'll go close that.
You can go close that. I'm going to jump in and talk a little Hall of Fame here. This was Oregon State's Hall of Fame weekend. They inducted it was probably one of the better classes we've seen as far as, and they've had some good ones. I mean, the Fiesta Bowl was a couple years ago, but Bob DeCarellis, Steven Jackson, Alexis Cerna, Mike Hass, Mike Riley,
Brett Berry,
the Final Four women's basketball team, and then a softball group, a rower, just a great overall class. But I think those were the real highlights of it. Fun to see those guys back in Corvallis. I looked for a couple of them. I never saw them pregame, Steven Jackson, and I did run into Mike Riley. Jake got to meet Mike Riley, and
cool.
Just a cool conversation. I walked away from that. My heart just felt happy. He's totally busy. It's pregame. People are trying to shake his hand. And I swear, Jake, he talked to me for 5 minutes. And
he did.
Gave me a big hug and just a wonderful, wonderful person. And I know Beaver fans have mixed feelings about his time at Oregon State or how it ended, but he loves the place. He's still in Corvallis, and seriously, just the most genuine person that you would ever meet. I was hoping to see Bob DeCarolis, just because I did work with him on the fundraising of Research Stadium, the old new side. So I really wanted to kind of see what his thought was on the new side and seeing that done. But so great that Oregon State was able to honor those folks in a fun celebration. And some other old time, Beavers were there. Dennis Erickson was there, and I never saw him either.
I didn't see him at all.
But James Rogers was in town. We saw him. Brian Watkins was there. So a good crowd and a good crowd of recruits. So we're catching up with some of the guys. It was a big, heavy State of Oregon younger underclass group for this week. And I expect Saturday to be a big recruiting weekend.
It's going to be
I've
huge.
heard a couple names that are potential, and a couple coming in from Florida.
Yep.
A couple Californians. So some big names
linebacker as well.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll have more on Beaver Blitz on those visitors as the week goes on. But I thought it was just a fun atmosphere to see those guys back for the Hall of Fame. Changing gears. So Jake, you weren't up in the press box with us, but it was kind of this. It was third quarter, I believe, right at the start of third quarter, and how quiet the press box is, silent. And all of a sudden, Eric's next to me, and he's like, "Game day is not coming. They're going to James Madison." I go, "What?" And probably about 5 minutes later, Hank announces to the press box that College Game Day announced they were going to James Madison. What was your reaction? I mean,
yeah. So
family show, but go ahead and tell us your thoughts.
So I was on the field, and I got a phone call from a buddy who said, like, what's happening? College Game Day is going to James Madison. And at first I was just kind of like, that's probably not true. And then obviously I don't have great service on there. I'm scrolling, and I see College Game Day is going to James Madison to play 5-5 or 6-4 App State. And to me, that's kind of mind blowing. This is a top 10 matchup with college football playoff implications. They haven't been to Corvallis in 13 years, and they've been to James Madison 3 times, including not even 5 years ago, or just over 5 years
2017.
ago.
2017.
So 6 years ago.
And when they were here at Oregon State, they were not here for Oregon State. They were here for the Ducks.
They're here for Oregon. Yeah. And to me, this kind of – I quite frankly think ESPN was scared. I think the backlash they're receiving now is worse than what they would have got if they came to Corvallis. But for a company that is one of the reasons why Oregon State is in the situation they are in, they could have put media attention on Oregon State. It's a great story how a team that's getting left behind. They're competing for a Pac-12 championship title and are facing a top 5 team with college football playoff aspirations, and it isn't going to get the coverage, even though Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit were already coming to Corvallis.
What I am happy to hear that they are, because when I heard that Game Day wasn't coming, I thought they may relegate, the Rod Gilmore team to Corvallis. So no, I think that is big, but I think it was a scared corporate decision that we can't highlight these guys because we are part of the problem that left them behind.
Yeah, and
we can't spotlight that and give that any airtime. And they couldn't not address it at all, because then then it looks even worse. So I will say I was pretty hacked off early.
Yeah.
Like Hawaiian guy says here, it's such an insult, but we all know why they're scared. And you know what? After I was pissed. I was freaking pissed, because I was pissed for the fans, and I was pissed for the players, because I feel like they've earned this. They've earned this right, or this, this outcome to, you play hard. It's a great story. They've persevered. I mean, this is a team that when Jonathan Smith took over was as low point as I've seen.
Power 5 team in the country.
Yeah. And they've turned things around. They don't have a conference home next season, and they're still fighting and scrapping to the point where they're not only could play spoiler, but are right in the thick of things as well as the number 10 ranked team in the country. So I don't like disservices, and I felt like this was a total disservice and disrespect.
Yeah.
Now, thinking about it, a day or two removed from it, it could be the best thing that happened, because I think there's a lot of hubbub and a lot of just distraction that comes with it. You have the whole game day team there in Corvallis meeting with coaches and players kind of starting Wednesday, Thursday of the week. There's the distraction that Coach Smith would have had to get up, who knows how early, to be on set with them in the morning. A lot of kind of circus atmosphere going on. And while fans would love it, and I think the team has earned that, I think it might be better served for the team to keep it as is, and kind of how they keep their week the way they prepare every week.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree. I think this decision kind of goes along with really the theme of Oregon State's season, where it's just been the disrespect from not as much the rankings this year, but nationally, the media. Oregon State really hasn't gotten the credit that they've deserved. In my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, you look at just stats, and Oregon State is right there in top 10 in so many of the areas. Yes, Jermaine Gray, I agree. They need to find a sponsor to do this, but We Belong shirts on every seat in section 100 of the stadium.
I would imagine
orange. They should have something.
I would imagine there is going to be something. I would be willing to bet that they decide to do something along, not necessarily those lines, but something with the student section or the fans, or just something that,
Or how about like a big flag, like the Beaver State
they could do
flag
that
they wear. They could have a
basketball
We Belong,
games.
We Belong flag for the student section. I don't know, something, but they need to do something. And, I do have faith that the department is on this and going to put their best foot forward on that.
Yeah.
But I think any other thoughts on that? Pate State is coming, or Josh Pate.
I did see that.
So, he was, I think, kind of blown away. For those that don't know, he is a national podcast and has a show with CBS Sports 24/7. So, Nick Volkers has set up a whole mock game day and make a huge parody out of it. Jake, would you like to tell us what you're doing?
Yeah, so this is funny, actually. So my fraternity is doing a mock college game day, and they roped me into doing an hour-long talk show with special guest pickers, which are Gavin Turley, which will be pretty cool. So there's going to be 3 or 4 of us up there at 10 in the morning doing a little hour-long talk show before tailgate. So it should be pretty fun.
I actually had thrown the idea out to Jake that maybe we could stream it on our YouTube channel, and he said it might not be family friendly. So it might not be totally professional. So we might not put it on the Blitz channel, but it sounds great. And I admire you college kids for doing that, because I think it's going to be super fun. So we're going to move on from that, because we could talk for all day about, and I can't wait. Somebody better be taking videos, because I want to see suits and all, right?
Oh, I'm sure they will. Yes.
Okay. This will be fun. Okay, so we're going to move into the week that was in the Pac-12. At least one surprise here. So start with Stanford at Oregon State. We know that was 62-17. No huge surprise there. Arizona 34, Colorado 31, came down to a last-second field goal for the Wildcats to win. Did you see that one coming?
This game was much closer than I anticipated. I thought Arizona was going to go out there and win by 2 to 3 scores. I mean, this is a team that had really been playing their best football, and Colorado had been playing their worst. But credit towards Colorado for just sticking in there, and they almost upset the Wildcats too, which would have helped Oregon State out in terms of the Pac-12 title.
Yeah, because Arizona still has a shot at the Pac-12 title game.
They have a better shot than Oregon State does, quite frankly.
Yeah. Because what do they have? ASU and
Utah.
Okay.
Utah this week.
So that was a close one, actually. Utah lost to Washington 35-28. Washington State lost to Cal 42-39, and the Cougs were down by a ton.
Yes.
And actually clawed their way back to make it close.
2 late touchdowns.
This was probably the shocker of the day. ASU beat UCLA in the Rose Bowl 17-7. Does that one?
Do you think Chip Kelly's gone after this year?
I don't. That's been kind of the talk. I saw some rumblings that UCLA would be going after Jonathan Smith. I don't think he goes. I know he's from Pasadena, but he went to school at Oregon State, and if the Beavs, I think he also knows that what he has at Oregon State. The Rose Bowl can't get a crowd. you're going to play second fiddle to USC for everything.
Yeah.
It's not like UCLA's athletic department is flush with cash either. So I don't know. It just depends, I think, what kind of transpires here in the next few days, next month. I have heard some rumblings about Oregon State's schedule next year, and it sounds promising. So if they go independent, it sounds like it could be promising. And then last of the day was the nightcap, USC, Oregon. Oregon won 36-27. I don't think really a shock there.
No. At this point, I do think Oregon's the best team in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I think they're better than Washington.
I agree. Just watching them, I think they're the most complete team.
Yeah.
Because Washington, I still have questions about them running the ball, and I think Oregon has both a running and passing attack.
Yeah. I'm more concerned about Washington's defense than their offense. I feel like their defense is not good. You know, I've been kind of working on the matchup preview, and statistically, this defense gives up over 400 yards a game, 25 points, just about. Oregon State is going to be able to score.
Yeah,
I think this game is going to come down to the Oregon State secondary slowing down the Washington, their passing game.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. Previewing just this week's games, another full slate of Pac-12 games. Colorado is at Washington State, where the Cougs are 4.5-point favorites. Not quite sure. I
think Colorado goes up there and wins, quite frankly.
I do too. Utah at Arizona. That's actually, I think, going to be a really good game. Arizona is a 1-point favorite on that one.
That's going to be a good game.
Which is surprising because, Utah's kind of been tough all year, but Arizona has really come along, and especially at home. I think they're tough. UCLA at USC, so their big rivalry game. USC is a 6.5-point favorite there. That game will be played at the Coliseum. Oregon at ASU. Oregon is a 22.5-point favorite, which this one intrigues me a little more. ASU is not good, but Kenny Dillingham's going to know some of Oregon's secrets. So
I think Arizona State covers. I think Oregon.
You do.
I think Arizona State covers, but I do think Oregon wins by about 2 touchdowns.
Okay. Yeah, that one, like I said, on paper, you kind of glass over it, but then thinking about it a little deeper, it might be a little more interesting than it looks.
It would be typical for the Ducks to lose that game. They have struggled in the state of Arizona in late November games historically.
Which that just baffles me because it's like nice down there. It's like 75, 80 degrees.
I don't know what it is, but they struggle.
Big game is Saturday, Cal at Stanford. Cal's a 6.5-point favorite. I think Cal rolls on this one.
I agree.
And then, the big primetime matchup, Washington at Oregon State, number 5 versus number 10. And Oregon State, this line has moved from Washington being a 2.5-point favorite to Oregon State being a 1-point favorite. What are your thoughts there?
Vegas knows something. I'm a little curious as to why that jump is. The more I look at this game, the more it feels like Oregon State is going to win. Washington's last 6 games they've all won by 10 points or less.
They've struggled. They struggled against Stanford. They struggled against ASU.
Yeah, they're a team that is their record. They're good in late close games, and I would imagine this is a game that comes down to the final possession or so. It's going to be a crazy environment. This is going to be probably the loudest I've ever seen Research Stadium. I would imagine it's really going to be a crazy game. I'm not going to give a score prediction until Thursday, but feeling confident the game goes in Oregon State's direction.
I just thought I have to send out the staff picks email because I did that. I wanted to pull up a question.
Again,
okay.
And I mean, something else that I feel like can't be overstated is playing the game in Research Stadium. Oregon State 16-1 in Corvallis over the last 3 years. They should have beat SC last year as well. So playing in front of their home crowd, it just smells right. I don't know.
yeah, something. I'm with you there. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break for the podcast side. If you're watching this live, it's just a short little 30-second break so that the ad can pop in, and we'll be right back. To talk a little bit more Washington and dive deeper into Washington. Just a quick update, though. If you are not a member of beaverblitz.com, now is the time to join. So much great insight, analysis, and discussion you want to be with. This is the biggest fan site on the internet covering Oregon State. It's Oregon State all the time. Come join fellow Beaver believers and also be able to read everything that Jake, myself, Peter, Raju, the whole team, JP. This is something, it's a year-round deal, and you don't want to miss it. So make sure to jump on and get that subscription to Beaver Blitz as soon as you can. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the damn podcast. If you were watching us live, it's just a short little break there on the podcast. We had to take a little break for the 24/7 network. Jake, huge game. We've kind of alluded to this all day. We've kind of been putting in little bits and pieces about this game. So it kind of hit me Sunday. I'm not going to lie. Sunday, so senior day is one of those kind of bittersweet days for me. I love senior day, but sometimes it's a little happy sad, when you see some of these guys that you have covered since they maybe arrived on campus. You were the one doing a quick interview, their first interview as they were freshmen, or so it's fun to watch how they've grown, to see their families. So it's senior day. It is the last Pac-12 as we know it game at Research Stadium. It is one of Oregon State's Northwest rivals who basically destroyed the conference and caused us to be in the situation we're in. Number 5 ranked Washington versus number 10 ranked Oregon State. Washington kind of, I felt, stole victory from the jaws of defeat last year up in Seattle. So many storylines here this week. National media in attendance. What concerns you about the Huskies when you look at them?
Yeah, this is their passing attack. They have arguably the best quarterback in the country. Michael Penix has been fantastic.
Don't tell Duck fans that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a whole nother conversation. But Michael Penix is truly a Heisman Trophy contender. He has been fantastic for Coach Kalen DeBoer, he's 21-2 in his first 2 seasons as Washington coach, which is unreal. This is a very well coached team, and they've got some studs in the passing game. With Roma Dunze might be the best wideout not named Marvin Harrison in the entire country. He is over 1,000 yards. Jalen Polk, a Texas Tech transfer, would arguably be the best receiver on pretty much any other team in the country. And their guy who was their best receiver last year, Jalen McMillan, should be back for the first time since week 3. Pair that with 2 solid tight ends in Jack Westover and Devin Culp, and this is the most explosive offense Oregon State has played all year.
Okay, but talk to me about the running game, because I haven't seen much of their run game. Are they more one-dimensional, or are they able to be one-dimensional?
Washington runs the ball in their bigger games. If you look at their running back, who's a transfer from Mississippi State, Dylan Johnson, his best 3 games have been against Oregon, USC, and Utah. And they've kind of steered in his direction over the last 2 weeks. He exploded against USC. He ran for 256 yards and I believe 2 or 3 touchdowns. Had another 100-yard game last week as well. And he's quietly put together a solid season. He has, I believe, 10 touchdown runs on 790 yards. Pretty solid numbers. And I do think with the conditions being what they may be, you may see Washington run the ball more than they might necessarily if it was a sunnier game.
So I pulled up some stats and I put them on a rundown. So right now, Washington is averaging 41 points a game, and then their defense is giving up 23.5. They're passing an average of 378 yards per game, giving up 270. And then they're rushing for an average of 126 yards per game, but giving up 141. They have only allowed 7 sacks on Michael Penix, while having 13 sacks of their own. Okay, so 2 things stand out to me there. Oregon State should be able to run. Yes. I want to say that. And then how do you think Oregon State D-line will get to Penix? Do you think they'll have any luck?
I think they will. I think this is a good Washington offensive line. They lost 3 starters, but they've really recovered, and they've got some studs there. One of their tackles, Troy Huatano, he's going to be an NFL starter. I think so, at least. And it's going to be a tough test, but this Oregon State defensive squad, I feel like is one of the more slept on units nationally. 36 sacks, lead the Pac-12 in both interceptions and passes broken up. And with this defensive line, they're talented enough to apply pressure. James Rawls has had a great year. Chatfield has really come on, and I think they're going to be able to apply pressure, and hopefully that causes Penix into making a mistake or two he typically wouldn't make.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think, Oregon State maybe isn't flashy with their sacks or putting up, but they're quietly putting up an amazing year. Yeah. I mean, it's, like I said, there's not one guy I think that you look at. Well, Chatfield's had the past couple of weeks.
Chat as of now.
But seriously, you look at this group and the numbers they're putting up and where they rank in the Pac-12 and nationally. This D-line is doing
fantastic,
really well. And that was you and I talked at the
too.
beginning of the season. That was going to be the strength. We were worried about the secondary. Do you think the secondary will be able to defend Rome Odunze and Jalen Polk and McMillan? I mean,
I think they will. This is honestly, Jaden Robinson is going to have a tough task, but I think he is more than able to handle it. And Ryan Cooper at one corner spot, he's proven to be capable. I think a key is getting Noble Thomas back. If Thomas is unable to play, then I would imagine Jermod McCoy would step in, and that's a younger freshman who Penix would probably pick on that. But Thomas is a stud. He's locked down. Put that with Ryan Cooper and Jaden Robinson, and I think the Oregon State cornerbacks are built for success.
Yeah, Brian Miller in the chat just said, look at how UW played at ASU. I think you're right, and I think the secondary has also maybe been a little underrated and has done more than maybe the pundits will give them credit for. I also don't underestimate Trent Bray here.
Yeah, great defensive coordinator.
It was interesting. So I've covered this team a long time, and there's been times that I've heard, players, or I've talked to coaches and asked different questions. And, I've heard defensive coordinators say, the guys decided to go renegade and do their own thing. They weren't following the game plan. They wanted to do kind of their own thing, thought they knew better. It was interesting because Chatfield in the post-game press conference on Saturday night, people were asking him, and he said, we have an amazing D coordinator, and we just have to trust him, and that he's giving us the right scheme that we practice all week, but then also coaching us on the sideline and helping. So that trust is there with Trent that I haven't seen, a lot of times when Oregon State has some decent defense. So I think that's huge because I do think that Trent Bray will have a really solid plan in place. Offensively, what do you think want to see Oregon State do?
Run the ball. I think Dame is going to be the key of this game. I think if he runs like he did last week, Oregon State has a very good chance to win this game. I think Coach Smith, Coach Lindgren, and Coach M, they're going to try and have Oregon State establish the run early. They're going to run the ball right out of the gate. And it's Oregon State's offensive identity, and it's going to open up the passing game as well.
Jermaine Gray, get Penix off his spot, and he's a different QB, and that's what we've seen. So some pressure there. But, yeah, I agree. Run the ball. And my other we'll get your keys to the game. One of my keys is going to be coaches not make any stupid decisions.
Yes.
Take the points. But I think the big thing that people aren't talking about necessarily that is going to be huge is I think Research Stadium on Saturday evening is going to be the most electric that I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first top 10 matchup in Research since the 2000 Civil War, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So
that, and like I said, coupled with the last Pac-12 game,
yeah,
people are going to be fired up.
I mean, I know this is the biggest Oregon State game of my lifetime, quite frankly. And for the majority of the students, I would say it is as well. I think this is going to be the loudest the stadium has ever been. I'm anticipating the student section to be packed 2 hours before kickoff. Another sellout crowd. It's going to be rowdy on Saturday night.
It's going to be super rowdy. And, we've heard Coach Smith in the post-game press conference on Saturday and then again today, just kind of appeal to Beaver Nation to, get there and be loud the whole time, that they need you more than they've ever needed you in this game. So you do make a difference. So get out, be loud. We've had some discussions in the Lodge at Beaver Blitz, the over and under of how many false starts or delay games the Washington will have because of how loud the crowd will be. But I think this has the chance to kind of have an epic game. This is going to be a one we talk about in 20 years saying, I was there when, this game happened. So Jake, before we move on to the mailbag, what are your keys to this game?
Offensively, establish the run game early. Like I said, Oregon State needs Dame to have a big game, and I think they're going to ride him right out of the gate. And then defensively, throw Michael Penix off his game. He's, in my opinion, he's the best quarterback in the Pac-12. Quite frankly, an argument can be made for the country, and Oregon State needs to not let him settle in and get comfortable.
Okay, there you heard it. Have a lot more analysis and insight as the week goes on. We work with our friends at dogman.com, our sister site up 24/7 Washington site. So we'll have some info there. In fact, I just got an email, Jake, that they'll be reaching out for a question and answer, but they said I cannot get out of being on their podcast. So I guess I'll be going on the Dogman podcast. It's gonna be a special Saturday. So make sure you're there. Should we do some mailbag questions?
Let's do it.
We got quite a few here in the Lodge at Beaver Blitz. Let me jump over here. Let's see. Ellis Thomas, and I apologize if that is not your name, but I try to live in the moment, but in your opinion, what happens if DJ returns next year? I love DJ and Aiden. I don't know what the right thing to do is.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, this would be the best quarterback battle Oregon State's ever had.
Yeah, can you imagine?
I mean, I feel like it's hard not to have DJ start. I do believe Aiden Childs might be more talented, but he's proven himself capable, and I do think maybe you see a quarterback rotation, like a platoon almost, where you see both of them play, because Aiden Childs is too good to keep off the field, but my guess would be DJ would be the starter.
Do you think we see more of Aiden in these next two games, just to kind of keep offenses or the opposing defenses?
That's a tough
honest?
question. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think we do, but it would not surprise me. I feel like Oregon State, DJ's gotten them this far. He's played fantastic, and I feel like Coach Smith is the kind of guy to ride with his guys. And not that Childs isn't his guy.
Yeah,
but
no, I get you.
DJ's proven himself, and I feel like he deserves to be.
I'm just thinking wrinkle-wise.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you see a package with both of them on the field. That could be something
that would be fun.
You could mix that up a little bit.
I don't know. I think we're going to see some super creative things the next couple of weeks.
I do too.
Injuries from Stanford game, specifically concerned with Chatfield, but any news is appreciated.
Chatfield's good.
Chatfield's good. Yep.
That's everything we've heard. He went back in after his, I believe it was a shoulder or a wrist.
It was a stinger. He said it was a stinger. And he was like, I'm fine. He told us that on the Saturday press conference. And Jonathan doesn't like to talk injuries, especially, in game weeks like this. But and Monday is tough just because most guys, we get the day-to-day. I do expect to see Levengood. That's my best guess on that and from what I'm hearing. So I think Levengood will be good to go, or at least be in the mix. Okay, this is a good one. Bees Fanatic 123 asks, which Beaver player is the biggest X factor for the UW game?
I'm going with Damian Martinez. I do believe he's going to make or break this game for Oregon State. I'm tempted to say DJ just because the added element of the passing game could put Oregon State up over the edge. But I think if Dame has a game like he had last week where he can really runs like that, then I think Oregon State has no troubles.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, there's the X factor there. I mean, if Damian runs like he did against first half Colorado, it could be a struggle. If he runs like he did against Stanford or really any other time. DJ, though, is an interesting one because I could see them letting him run a little more too this week.
Yeah. We really haven't seen a lot from him in the run game in the last really 4 weeks. I feel like the coaching staff has kind of kept the playbook a little more vanilla.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they haven't had to do much. So
so maybe we see something opened up.
Because even Colorado, which was
a close
game, close-ish, it never did feel kind of out of. Let's see. If we have a couple. Brian Miller says, get in your seats before kickoff. So yes, I definitely recommend that. Give those seniors a good welcome. And then Brian Miller also says, put Aiden out wide for a backward pass to him so he can either run it or throw it. That'd be an interesting
possible
one too. Okay, so How big of an impact will a win versus Washington have on recruiting?
Huge. I think it'll be huge. I think it'll show these kids at Oregon State can compete against, the Big Ten and the SEC. And not that it already hasn't been shown, but now on more of a national level, I think it's going to go a long way. I think it'll boost Oregon State into the top 7 of the rankings, I would imagine, 6 or 7, and that really can't be understated because, these kids are seeing things like, the top 10 and seeing Oregon State in there. It could go a long way.
Yeah, it could, which is funny, too, that we talk about that because when Steven Jackson, one of the questions I asked the guys in the Saturday press conference was just about the Hall of Fame because those guys, Mike Hass, Steven Jackson, Alexis Serna, all spoke to the team Friday night. And I said something to Chatfield. I said, you're newer here. You probably aren't familiar with these guys. I was like, oh, no, Steven Jackson was like the guy I looked up to growing up. And he goes, I always thought I was going to be a running back. So can you imagine maybe putting Chatfield back as a running back
there? That's a big boy.
Maybe. Okay. Beaver Baseball 1963 says, with it being our last Pac-12 home game, is there anything special planned? A flyover, cowboy hats, etc.? I haven't heard of the flyover. There might be a flyover.
I've heard rumblings. Nothing.
Yeah, I've heard
nothing concrete or
but I have heard rumblings about that. But my guess would be there's something. Something will be a giveaway.
I would be shocked if there was anything.
Bucket, I saw somebody bucket hats or sunglasses or something. Those cowboy hats last year were seriously probably the best giveaway swag thing I've ever seen, just because they were so visible from TV.
I never got one. I wish I would have gotten one. Bummer.
I didn't get one either. They didn't have them in the press box for us. Yeah. JRU1 in the chat says, "Can the Beavers pass for 100 yards?" Is the question. They haven't since Jake Luton threw for 158. I'm guessing that's against the Huskies.
That stat's interesting to me because it's been 4 years since they put Washington 3 times since then, and they haven't. But this Washington secondary isn't the secondaries of the past. Jimmy Lake's not their defensive back coach, and this game isn't going to be played in a monsoon like it was last year. This Huskies secondary gives up 270 yards a game. Quite frankly, wouldn't be shocked if DJ hits over 100 in the first half.
Yeah, I think this is going to be – it's supposed to be wet. I think that's 50-50 chance of rain, but it's not going to be the monsoon. Reeser Beeb 23 says, where do you think OSU will be ranked after beating UW and U of O?
UW and U of O. And U of O.
Jake's eyes got really big on that one.
I would imagine 5th or 6th, probably behind Ohio State or Michigan, or probably both of those two. Georgia, Alabama would still probably be ranked higher. I don't know what. I would guess in the 5 to 8 range. I don't think they're gonna crack the top 4 unless things get really, really weird. But I would imagine in that range, and that would set Oregon State up for Fiesta Bowl.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
it will be fun. Beaver Jim says, talk about the college coaching carousel that resulted over the weekend and today. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Smith, Lindgren, or Bray landing into the open spots? So right now there's Texas A&M, Mississippi State, San Diego State, Boise State.
Michigan State and Northwestern as well from earlier in the year. I wouldn't really be too concerned about Jonathan Smith. I know there's been rumblings about him to Michigan State. Doesn't really make much sense to me. I think Trent Bray isn't – I feel like Trent Bray's locked in. He's Trent Bray, I feel like, doesn't have any desire to leave Corvallis anytime soon. Brian Lindgren is a name I feel like could be connected to these Mountain West jobs.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm looking at that. I know they like to travel up to Idaho. Could see him at Boise or San Diego State.
He's from Idaho. He played at Idaho. It wouldn't be shocking. Boise State typically doesn't go to guys that don't have ties directly to the program, but they could go outside the box now and go after Brian Lindgren. But I feel like just the biggest key is keeping Coach Am. He's, in my opinion, outside of Trent Bray, he's the most valuable member of the coaching staff.
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, I think we do see some turnover eventually, but Coach Mihalacek, Coach Bray, and Coach Smith, I think, are the ones that you roll out the bank and keep those guys. And speaking of bank, okay, Texas A&M paid
Jimbo.
Jimbo Fisher $75 million
Yeah.
to just walk away.
I'm sure he's not complaining about not coaching. That's quite the payday.
Jake, I mean, if I just said I'll give you $75 million to walk away from Beaver Blitz, you're like,
yeah.
okay, see ya.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see who Texas A&M goes after. Obviously, they have enough money to throw out really the big names. Maybe they go after like a Urban Meyer, which would be interesting, or a Kalen DeBoer or a Dan Lanning, which
I keep hearing funny. Lanning's name pop up there.
Yeah,
but,
that'd be kind of funny.
Yeah, that's Brian Miller in the chat asks, how did the Beavers not get a single player of the week award? Was it because it was against Stanford? I don't know, Brian, because my voting ballot, I had a couple of them picked to win because I thought Damian deserved it. I thought Chat, Catan was one. So anyway, I don't know. I guess Pac-12 coaches or Pac-12 media figured it was Stanford, but that was such a dominating performance. Yeah. Let's see a couple more. Another question. Beaver Jim wants to know about DJ. Is it a foregone conclusion that DJU will declare for the NFL draft?
Nothing has been publicly stated.
No.
I am expecting to see him walk on senior day on Saturday. Would imagine he doesn't come back, but there is a possibility he does have an extra year. This is a very loaded draft class at the quarterback spot.
Seriously.
Whereas next year, the biggest name is probably Shedeur Sanders, and outside of that, there's not a whole lot of proven guys. So
I mean, Caleb Williams is apparently asking for part ownership in a team. Maybe that
Really?
drops his stock.
I have not seen that. That is interesting.
An unproven NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's our question. So it's going to be an amazing week, guys. Stick with Beaver Blitz. We have some fun things planned. Like I said, it's starting to hit that Oregon State has 2 games left this season, regular season.
Yeah.
And so let's see, make the most of it, and be at Reeser on Saturday. Be loud, be proud, wear your orange, and then get into the lodge at Beaver Blitz. And so many good discussions, so much good debate back and forth about, who's going to be the lead, who's going to, score the most points. I mean, we have discussions about everything. So jump in there. And then also you're able to read the Smackdown each week by Raju and Peter. You're able to read Trench Report, which is Peter Riley Osborne breaking down offensive line play. Jake has pieces every single day that you need to be reading if you like analysis pieces and want to see stats. So jump in the lodge at Beaver Blitz, jump on a membership to Beaver Blitz, and we will be back next week to talk about a Washington win, hopefully, and then preview the Civil War.
The last
Till then, I'm Angie Machado. He's Jake Hedberg. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Damn Podcast.